Tonight, airlines brace for a slowdown as Canadians cancel trips to the U.S.
The trust is gone. Why would a Canadian want to go to the United States right now?
The tariff backlash already being felt south of the border.
We're about 40% less over last year.
And the calls for a patriotic display for Flag Day.
We're not going to America. We're not spending our money there. It's Canada first, baby.
On social media, Canadians are loud and proud about boycotting trips to the U.S.
Flights, accommodation.
Michelle Porter is among them. She had a Florida trip for herself and 6 family members all booked. But Donald Trump's tariff threats changed everything.
I just canceled it.
Canceled a 2-week vacation, including flights, accommodations, and Disney World tickets. Thanks to insurance, she got most of her money back, but she lost about $1,300 US and says she has no regrets.
As Canadians, that we need to stick together and as unity, and I raise my children to feel the same, be proud.
Millions of Canadians are canceling their travel plans to the US and boycotting American tourism in a powerful response to Trump's tariffs. Major US destinations are feeling the impact while Canadian patriotism is surging. This backlash could cost the US billions and reshape North American tourism in the coming years. The controversy erupted when President Trump announced a 25% tariff on most Canadian goods, with oil, gas, and electricity taxed at 10%. This move was part of a larger trade dispute involving Canada, Mexico, and China. Initially set to take effect on February 4th, 2025, the tariffs were paused for 30 days following last-minute negotiations between Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Tensions escalated further when Trump made provocative comments about turning Canada into the 51st U.S. state, further straining diplomatic relations. In response, Prime Minister Trudeau imposed retaliatory 25% tariffs on American goods, including Wisconsin dairy products, Florida oranges, and Kentucky bourbon. On February 3rd, 2025, Trudeau delivered a solemn 13-minute televised speech, urging Canadians to support their economy and reconsider travel to the U.S. He encouraged citizens to buy Canadian-made products, choose Canadian rye over Kentucky bourbon, and explore domestic travel options instead of vacationing in the US. This sentiment was echoed by David Eby, Premier of British Columbia, who urged Canadians to think carefully about where they spend their money, especially when the US is taking economic actions against Canada. These calls for national solidarity have sparked a surge in Canadian patriotism, leading to a widespread boycott of US goods and travel. Social media platforms are flooded with Canadians sharing their decisions to cancel trips to the US, opting instead for domestic travel or alternative international destinations. The travel industry is already feeling the impact of this boycott. Flight Centre, Canada's largest travel agency, has reported a surge in cancellations of US vacations, with many customers rebooking trips elsewhere. Amra Durovich from Flight Centre stated, "Canadians are taking a stand in solidarity. They're showing the US administration where they're choosing to spend their tourism dollars." She added that Flight Centre has helped numerous travelers rebook milestone trips and bucket list experiences valued at $2,000 or more.
Agencies are adjusting too.
We've looked at our numbers and we're about 40% less over last year, 40% less bookings to the US for leisure travel.
He says customers are also questioning flying with U.S. airlines at all. That's true of this Canadian couple, now selling their property in California.
When we go down there to finalize the sale, we'll be flying out of Toronto on a Canadian airline. It's not necessarily cheaper for us, but I'm intentionally avoiding anything I can that's going to put money in the pockets of that system, I guess.
And even if the tariffs never materialize,
I will not go to the United States while Donald Trump is in power.
And Erica, it is not just Michelle Porter. A survey released this week found nearly half of Canadian travelers were less likely to visit the U.S.
Okay, of course, Magda, this is part of a broader movement among Canadians.
Yeah, from choosing Canadian groceries to pouring California wine down the drain to booing the American national anthem. Since Trump announced that 25% tariff, Canadians are looking for ways to voice their displeasure with the U.S. administration. And tomorrow we may see another display of patriotism with former prime ministers and politicians encouraging Canadians to fly a
Canadian cruiser recently shared on Reddit that due to tariffs and trade tensions, they have decided to avoid spending their tourism dollars in the US. The user mentioned that their wife had originally planned a cruise in October, departing from Vancouver to Hawaii for 6 days before returning to San Diego, followed by a short stay before flying back to Vancouver Island. However, they are now reconsidering their plans. Amanda Lai Smith told CBC News that she had canceled a planned 2-week trip to Disneyland and Universal Studios, opting instead for a road trip to Mexico. She explained that her family has always seen themselves as allies to marginalized communities and is now choosing to support alternative travel destinations. This shift in Canadian travel habits is expected to have significant economic consequences for the US, particularly in states like Florida, California, Nevada, New York, and Texas, which are among the top destinations for Canadian tourists. In Florida alone, Canadians accounted for 38% of all foreign visitors in 2023, according to Visit Florida. As Canadians adjust their travel plans, there has been a noticeable increase in interest in domestic tourism and international destinations like Mexico, Portugal, and Antigua. Economic experts warn that even a 10% decline in Canadian visitors to the US could lead to 2 million fewer visits, $2.1 billion in lost spending, and 14,000 job losses. Given that Canada is the largest source of international tourists to the US, with 2.4 million visits in 2024, generating $20.5 billion in spending and supporting 140,000 American jobs. This trend poses a serious concern. Some US states like Texas, where Canadian tourists contributed $43.3 million in travel spending in 2023, are bracing for the economic impact. Val Peacock, chair of the Municipal Council in Bar Harbor, Maine, expressed concern about the potential impact on her town, which is connected to Nova Scotia by the Cat Ferry. She stated, "It does make me sad on a personal level. Bar Harbor is a major tourism destination in Maine, and we don't know what will happen to our economy and the people who depend on it." For Canada, the situation presents both challenges and opportunities. While domestic tourism may see an increase, Canadian airlines and travel agencies are adjusting to shifts in demand. Porter Airlines reported some weakening in select US leisure markets, but noted an uptick in domestic bookings. The airline stated, "We initially saw some softening in select US leisure markets, but it is too early to determine any strong trends." However, many domestic routes have experienced increased bookings in recent days. If more Canadians choose to travel within the country, the airline noted that 75% of its peak summer capacity is allocated for domestic routes. The business travel sector is also feeling the effects of these developments. A survey by YouGov found that 85% of Canadian small and mid-sized enterprises believe US tariffs or trade restrictions would reduce their corporate travel for trade-related business activities. According to Davkovich, more than 3/4 of these businesses are now exploring new markets, potentially signaling a shift in North American business dynamics. In the short term, the situation has sparked discussions about personal values and political views among Canadian travelers. Jordan Danger, an artist from Ottawa, told CBC News that she canceled her planned trip to the United States later this year as a matter of principle. Similarly, Jason Dale, a 52-year-old high school teacher from Port Dover, Ontario, had been planning a family vacation to Tennessee for over a year, along with 2 other families. Their itinerary included a road trip to Dollywood, the Titanic Museum attraction, and the Great Smoky Mountains. However, they have now abandoned those plans. Dale cited concerns over rhetoric surrounding tariffs, the mockery of Canada's Prime Minister, and suggestions about Canada becoming the 51st state as key reasons for their decision. "That did it for all of us. Everyone agreed we're not going. We're keeping our money in our own country," he explained. The Dale family's decision reflects a broader trend. Christine Gurr, founder of Maple Leaf Tours in Kingston, Ontario, reported that her motor coach tour company has already seen a 30% decline in bookings for US travel packages this year, affecting popular destinations such as Nashville, Washington, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
We'll see a similar amount, while Chinese goods will be hit with an additional 10% tariff. These are all expected to kick in as of February 3rd. The president is warning Americans will feel a little short-term pain, but what he left out is that pain comes on top of the steepest spike in inflation felt this generation. The grocery store is likely to be the first place where most Americans feel the impact. I'm talking $46 billion worth of food items from Mexico alone. 20% of our fresh fruits and vegetables come from our southern neighbor, and it's not just avocados. Alcoholic beverages are also on the tariff hit list. I'm talking beer, tequila, and of course, mezcal. Your next new car is likely to be at least $3,000 more expensive, according to some estimates. You might think because your automobile is made in the USA, you'll be immune. But even cars assembled within the border have dozens of parts made in Mexico and Canada. Anything you have to replace that has steel in it will face higher tariffs, since Canada and Mexico will no longer be exempt from global steel tariffs. Home prices, which are already at or near record highs, will be impacted. 30% of the type of lumber used to build homes comes from our Canadian neighbors, while 71% of materials used within drywall are imported from Mexico. And that's just the impact of Mexico and Canadian tariffs. Chinese products are even more abundant inside and outside our homes, ranging from the things we cook and eat with, what we wear on our feet and backs, and what our kids play with. Wall Street is in an uproar as the Trump trade war 2.0 begins.
The impact is being felt on both sides of the border. Monica Church, a New Jersey resident, recently received a cancellation from a Canadian couple who had booked a month-long stay at her vacation rental in North Myrtle Beach. The couple cited the ongoing trade war as their reason for canceling. Church expressed both understanding and admiration for their commitment to Canadian solidarity, saying, "I'm a little jealous of that feeling, where you stand together for your country. It's like how everyone felt after September 11th, proud to be American. Lately, I haven't felt that same pride. I wear a rainbow on my fanny pack. Does that make me a walking target? I'm not part of the LGBTQ+ community, but I'm an ally. If my Canadian accent stands out, could that put a target on my back?" These concerns go both ways. Church and her husband had been planning a road trip to Montreal and Quebec, but now she worries that their American license plate could make them targets in Canada. The boycott is having a particularly strong effect in regions near the US-Canada border. Tamara Bowden, a 41-year-old wedding photographer from Trail, British Columbia, just 10 miles from the border, shared how weekend trips to the US for dining and shopping at places like Trader Joe's and Target were once routine. "That's not how I'll be spending my Saturdays anymore, at least not for the next 4 years, she stated, as one Canadian Reddit user, Infamous Course 4019, put it after canceling a cruise to Hawaii. "As Canadians, the only way we can show our support is by choosing where we spend our money. With the tariff pause nearing its expiration, all eyes are on Washington and Ottawa. Will cooler heads prevail, allowing for a resolution and a return to normal travel patterns, or will tensions rise, leading to lasting damage in US-Canada relations and a reshaping of North American tourism for years to come? Regardless of the outcome, this situation has already highlighted the power of consumer choice in international relations. Millions of Canadians are making their voices heard on the global stage through their travel decisions.
Trump's decision to whack tariffs on American allies and rivals has seen a weekend of retaliation. Canada announcing its own tariffs, Mexico warning of some of their own, and China set to take their case to the World Trade Organization. But for the White House, it's time to double down.
Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China have sparked an unprecedented global backlash. In a historic response, all three nations have announced retaliatory measures. Canada imposing $30 billion in tariffs, Mexico launching Plan B, and China threatening action through the World Trade Organization, WTO. With key U.S. goods, energy supplies, and automobiles at risk, experts warn that these escalating trade tensions could cost the global economy hundreds of billions of dollars. Is this the beginning of an economic crisis that no one can stop? Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trump's latest tariff plan includes a 25% levy on goods from Canada and Mexico, along with a 10% tariff on Canadian energy products. Additionally, all imports from China now face a 10% tariff. The president defended these measures, citing concerns over the fentanyl crisis and illegal immigration. Using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, the administration swiftly implemented the tariffs. According to a White House fact sheet, the decision is backed by alarming statistics. Over 10 million illegal migrants attempted to enter the U.S. under the previous administration, including an increasing number of Chinese nationals and individuals on the U.S. terror watch list. Meanwhile, illegal crossings at the northern border with Canada are rising, affecting many aspects of American life. Last fiscal year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection intercepted more than 21,000 pounds of fentanyl at the borders, just a fraction of the total smuggled drugs.
I am glad that we're pushing back against China and Mexico when it comes to fentanyl poisoning of America. I am glad we're putting everybody on notice that the old way of doing business is over.
As Mexico prepares retaliatory tariffs, President Claudia Sheinbaum spoke today with Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who announced a 25% tax on $20 billion worth of US goods, warning Americans of the costs.
Tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk.
The United States' national security was reportedly threatened by a global oversupply of steel and aluminum, but is now being safeguarded, according to former President Donald Trump. Defending his decision, Trump declared, "We're not going to be the stupid country any longer. Make your product in the USA and there are no tariffs." He further asserted that the results of these tariffs would be spectacular. Canada responded swiftly and decisively. In a press conference, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced retaliatory measures, imposing immediate 25% tariffs on $30 billion worth of US goods, with plans to expand them to an additional $125 billion in products within 21 days. The targeted items range from beer, wine, and bourbon to fruits, fruit juices, clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. Trudeau emphasized the strength of US-Canada relations, calling their economic, military, and security partnership the most successful the world has ever seen. He also refuted Trump's claims regarding fentanyl and illegal immigration, clarifying that less than 1% of fentanyl entering the US originates from Canada, and that illegal migration from Canada accounts for less than 1% of the total. Addressing Americans directly, Trudeau warned, "These tariffs will have real consequences for you. We don't want to be here. We didn't ask for this, but we will not back down." He urged Canadians to support locally made products, encouraging them to check labels and choose Canada. Meanwhile, Mexico's response, initially more measured, has become increasingly forceful. President Claudia Sheinbaum firmly rejected U.S. accusations of cartel alliances, stating, "We categorically reject the White House's slander against the Mexican government for having alliances with criminal organizations." She announced the implementation of Plan B, a set of retaliatory measures, though specific details have yet to be disclosed. She emphasized a public health approach to the fentanyl crisis, urging both countries to form a team of experts to address the issue. Additionally, she highlighted the potential economic impact on Mexican industries and workers, particularly in the automotive and agricultural sectors. Mexico's economy minister, Marcelo Ebrard, stated on X that Trump's tariffs constitute a blatant violation of the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, affirming that Plan B is underway. "We will win." China, another major target of Trump's tariffs, has also responded firmly. The Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a statement opposing the US plan to impose a 10% tariff on Chinese exports, vowing to take countermeasures and announcing their intent to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization, WTO. The ministry reaffirmed China's firm and consistent position, emphasizing that trade and tariff wars have no winners. They also rejected accusations related to fentanyl, reminding the world that China was the first country to classify and regulate all forms of fentanyl as a controlled substance in 2019. The potential economic impact on China's export-driven economy is significant, as 28% of US consumer goods imports come from China. Financial markets have also reacted strongly, with signs of volatility emerging. The yuan plummeted to a record low in offshore trading, while Mexico's peso and Canada's dollar dropped to multi-year lows. Market analyst Tony Sycamore told Reuters that the surprise for investors was the immediate retaliation by Canada and Mexico, with China and the EU potentially following suit, raising fears of a sharp contraction in global trade.